All right, Andy, we're on.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And before we get going, Andy, I have to ask, what is next on the endurance sport schedule for you?
Oh God. Well, next up is going to be Ironman in September, and then leading up against the World Champs in Marbella in November. So it's been a bit of a rocky start to the year on the triathlon front. A couple of injuries, but I managed to get my slot for Spain and see what I can put up this year.
And Andy, for folks tuning in that don't know you, I mean, I have a 13.1 sticker back there. I should probably cross that off and change it to 8 because that was the half marathon I did last year. I ran 8 miles and then limped 5 on a pulled hammy.
There you go.
But Andy, yeah, just tell the audience a little bit about the outside of the work world, some of the endurance sport prowess that you do. I'm pretty fascinated by it, man.
Yeah, so for anyone listening that has known me since, goodness, back in the Novartis, back in the Shire days, probably wouldn't recognize the person that is going to say all of this now. But I was a collegiate national level swimmer back when I was a teenager. So I ended up in the US the first time round on a scholarship before I ended up back home in the UK. And then between life, work, family, kids, 70 pounds heavier. I had a bit of a moment in 2020 where it was a bit of a chance to kind of restart life all over again and kind of correct some things that, had probably taken a little bit too far. And found my way back to sport of triathlon. And it was my wife's fault. I blame her for everything. So she can't complain about any of this. At the time, we had a place in New Hampshire, and the town we were in had this charity event every year where they do like a mini sprint triathlon around the town. And she's like, you should do that. You can swim. You like riding Peloton. And, hell, like, how far's the run? 5K, sure, you could probably hobble around doing that. So I did. I ended up getting into it, where signed up with a buddy of mine at the time, did this race, finished pretty much dead last, thought I was going to die, but immediately came home and searched like Boston Triathlon. I'm like, I got to do another one of these things. What is it? And that was the end of it. That was game over then as far as sport was concerned. I got into a race, the Boston Triathlon, which actually is this coming weekend. And it was the first real, I would say, event that I got into, and it took off. Ended up, I think I'm now up something like 13, 14 half Ironmans that I've done. I raced the World Championships for the first time in New Zealand last December, and yeah, we'll keep going. I'm extremely fortunate that they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I think you can. And I'm really fortunate that I've managed to find my way into a coach who's actually a professional herself and lives in Boston. Fascinating way to think about the world. It's a huge stress relief for me. It just means a lot of late nights on a bike in a basement or running around in the dark, certainly in the winter time.
I think it's so cool, Andy. I've learned about this since we got to know each other, 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm just fascinated by it. But also, um, it's interesting. Anytime someone comes on the show, I jump into my inbox and figure out when's the first time I chatted with this person. And I sent you a note. I don't know, around this time in 2020, right? Not much is going on then, right, in the world, right? And it's interesting. Your response was, you're always so thoughtful. You said, "Hey, I got a lot, a lot going on right now, but would love to chat. Shoot me a note here."
Yeah.
And just to think now, knowing the story, just personally, I mean, professionally, that's another topic. All that was going on, it makes me pretty grateful that we were able to connect. So thanks for telling the audience a little bit about your triathlon prowess, but tell us a little bit about kind of your origin story. What kind of got you into organizational thinking. Like, would love to hear the whole story. Go back as far as you want. Yeah, let us know.
No, it was I'd come back from time in the US, came back, bunch of different jobs trying to figure out which way was up. Found myself in the military of all things. Spent a few years in the army. And I would say this, with a great deal of humility, like it taught me to actually grow up and actually take some accountability. I wasn't gifted with anything here, wasn't, incredibly, Sporty in some respects was a great gift that I had, but I had to work at it. Academically, I had to work at it. And going into the army, I had to work at that as well. But it was such a leveling experience for me. But it was the one thing that kind of figured out I could take care of myself. Like it taught me life skills above and beyond anything else that I have. It taught me the value of teamwork, but also it taught me the value like you never take things at face value. Like what you might see of someone, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And that's something that's kind of really stuck with me for decades since then. Left the army, and came into the start of my working life, and ended up randomly. It was my grandfather, who kind of encouraged me with this. He liked to play the stock market at the time, and he got into, oh God, what was the company called? Manpower. He got into Manpower stock. Now, for anyone who knows Manpower, like back in the, let's call it the 90s for argument's sake, we're a pretty big deal. You walked up and down the high street in the UK in any major town, there would be a Manpower office or Randstad or something like that. And he was like, I think this recruitment thing is going to be a big deal somewhere down the road. He said, you should try and get into that. And randomly, I did. Got into IT recruitment. And it was the biggest eye-opener of how you think things work a certain way, and then you get inside and you realize that actually it's completely different. I was told, no word of a lie, they said, this is how people recruit. You will get a resume. You'll get someone send their CV in on the post. You'll be lucky you might get it faxed. So now I'm aging myself right here. And then basically you'll look at the resume, find any keywords, shove it in an envelope and mail it out to like 50 people. And I'm like, I'm sorry, we're going to do what? And you're going to pay me to basically do this? And it's like, yeah, you maybe make a few phone calls afterwards. I'm like, this seems like weird, but okay. But that is how recruitment was done for a long time. I hope it's not the same now, but it certainly feels the way sometimes that people are emailing resumes every 5 minutes. But it was an insight into like, okay, this is how one part of like the world of HR could work. But like HR hadn't even really become human resources at that point. Fast forward a couple of different companies, I end up getting an assignment to go be based out of the Netherlands, working for a big tech startup, big presence in Europe, making their first presence known in just outside of Amsterdam. And it was great. Every other week I'd fly out I'd fly out from Luton out to Amsterdam 4 days a week in a nice hotel, working with this American company to really build up their European infrastructure. And it was the first time that I ended up taking a role of HR. I was head of European recruitment, working for the VP of HR, but I was also head of HR for the Netherlands for all 6 people of us. And it was crazy. I'm like, how is this kid from Birmingham now running HR for the Netherlands when I don't even speak the language? But between myself and the CFO in the country, we figured it out. Tech bubble burst, everyone gets laid off, and I come back to the UK. And a couple of months of searching around what was going to be next. I really wanted to kind of get into a different type of organization. I wanted something a little more structured. And I had 2 opportunities literally presented to me in the same week. One was 2 minutes down the road from where I lived, engineering company, been around for 50 years. Or the other one was an hour and a half drive each way, but it was with a company called Eli Lilly. I had no idea what Lilly did, no idea what was going on. But I remember coming back from the interview and I said, there's something really weird about this. This guy was like such an enigmatic presence. His claim to fame was he was the only Egyptian HR manager in the UK. And he was on an international assignment with them. And he's like, he offered me the job and I said, I just don't think it's for me. And he actually called me back and said, I think you're making a really big mistake. He said, I think you should really think about this. Because as far as I was concerned, this was helping them build up a sales force for a new product they were coming out with. And all I could think about is like, these guys and girls are running around in a car selling drugs out the back of the back of the car to doctors. I had no idea what it all meant. So I went and talked to my grandfather and said, what did he think? And he's like, you should go. This is like the next big thing. Healthcare, people are going to get old. They need drugs. And he was incredibly right. He passed away not long after I'd started, unfortunately. But, he was a big lever for me in terms of, someone I would play things off. And he was absolutely right. I ended up at Lilly, spent a good number of years there, built the sales force, ended up taking on HR roles for animal health and specialty care. And randomly, some of the people that I worked with in the HR team at the time are still there. And, we all joined at the same time. And this is what now started to get a bit frightening. Two of them have just retired in the last 12 months. And I'm like, okay, I'm not ready for that just yet. But they'd stuck there for the whole time. If I look at my path in the same, I've kind of took a very different process. I met my wife there, and we both sat down one New Year's Eve and we said, like, if we don't look for something outside of Lily, we'll never leave. And she's probably going to watch this and like cringe when I mention what became famous for a few years of our New Year's Eve conversations where life-changing events would happen. And that was the year we said, okay, we'll both start looking. She'd been there for 7 years. I'd been there for nearly 5. So we started looking. Randomly, we both were interviewing with Novartis. Had a deal. We said, if it goes this far, whoever gets the offer first is where we go. Her job was based in London. Mine was in Switzerland. I got the job offer first by 24 hours. So we stuck to the agreement and we moved to Switzerland. And that was it. I haven't been back in the UK since, and that's been nearly 20 years. Spent 7+ years with Novartis in a variety of roles. Went from a corporate functions job to a region Europe job. Moved out to the US when they bought the vaccine business. Then moved to California, ran diagnostics business out there. And then decided we weren't ever going to leave California. That was home. That was where we were embedded down. We both were working at Roche Genentech in South San Francisco for a while. And then random phone call from a friend and former boss, twice former boss, got me back to the East Coast, and it was perfect timing. We just had adopted our first child. Weren't thinking of a second one, but the second one was obviously thinking of us. Grandparents were too far away. Once a year trip to California wasn't really cutting it. So getting back to the East Coast, where a 5-hour flight was certainly more manageable, made a lot of sense. So we moved back, and we've been back almost 10 years now. And since being back, had a amazing time working with a lot of guests you've had on the show, from Kelly Bauscher, Adam Thomas. We all met and got together as part of the Shire crew for a number of years. And then we all kind of sped off and went our own different way. Had some time with Beth Grouse over at TripAdvisor, which was, incredibly formative, and learned a ton before coming back into healthcare with biotech, and now for the last 5 years with BVI Medical, which is a surgical ophthalmology, more med device, med tech. Something I touched on a little bit with the diagnostic business, but not to this extent, but certainly back to the ophthalmology side, which I'd seen with Novartis and with Shire in different ways. And that's it. That's the story.
Andy, it's so cool. I mean, one of the cool things about being able to host this show is I get to learn everyone's kind of journey. Everyone's is so different, and I always, as a working parent now, and when I talk to other working parents, or just talk to other folks that work in general, this idea of balancing it all is so important, but also everyone to a person you can hear in their journey. I mean, even talked about it, right? The balance, it's not always, it's never perfect, but at different phases, you're kind of searching for what it even means. It's so cool to me to hear your story. I mean, I know you as such a highly regarded HR and people executive in the life science space, but it's cool to trace it all the way back and think that perhaps if that hiring manager doesn't call you back and say, "I think you're making a mistake," and perhaps if your grandfather doesn't say, "Oh, well, that's, life sciences, that's really, that's gonna be the future of, healthcare and delivery," that it could have been totally different. It's just really neat to hear those forks in the road and how they start to shape, what you do professionally.
No, totally. Totally, it does. I think the balance piece, but I think it also, I do think back to the Lily story a lot because, there's some incredible moments in life that are still happening right now because of Lily. People that, I met and had a chance to work with that we're still connected. And it's so incredibly powerful to me to think about the power of connectivity, how social media plays such a big role in that. But how it's been so fascinating to watch people's career journeys, like, all evolve in very different ways. But it's also just around from a product side, and this is where life gets really random. So Lilly, at the time that I was there, they owned the division called Elanco. which was the animal health business. That was my first pan-European, non-UK only job. And I worked with the head of Europe and the head of R&D. And I remember one of my last meetings, Lilly was very famous for, back in the 90s, Prozac. Developed the first best-in-class antidepressant. When I was leaving, which wasn't all that long after the product had lost patents, they were looking at various indications for animal health, animal well-being. And I remember sitting in a meeting room where they were talking about the first study in fleas using Prozac as antidepressants for animals. My dog is now on Prozac for pets. Like a full-blown anxiety-riddled dog, living with a product I literally have to feed him medicine every morning to make sure he doesn't have an absolute panic attack. And it's so wild for me how, like, in 20 plus years, I saw the product go off patent, be in a meeting room talking about a clinical study, thinking, what the hell are they who's going to have a dog with anxiety? Like, and then I've got one myself. It's weird. But it is also a little bit how, seeing some of the products that are developed. I mean, what becomes the GLP-1s that are out there right now? We saw their first iterations go through development and pre-launch activity. It's wild to see what's happened. It really is. I mean, and I am incredibly grateful for Amir Shukri was his name, the Egyptian HR manager, who we're kind of still loosely connected on LinkedIn. He was the guy that called me back, and I'm incredibly glad that he did, because I'm not sure I'd be sitting here right now if he had.
Or maybe you're sitting here with an engineering background, sure. Um, well, it's neat, and Andy, I'm gonna kinda put you on the spot here for a second, right? So, um, you're not the only person of the Shire crew or the Lilly crew, right, to talk about just how cool it was to be a part of those teams back then and to watch people go off and do their own thing successfully, I don't wanna say individually, but individually relative to that group. I'm always fascinated, and I'll give you my own anecdote to bounce off of, but how do you stay in touch with them all? And let me just share this with you. Um, you know, I like what you shared early about, everyone you never really know where someone is relative to their own life and what they have going on or what their calendar looks like, whether that's at home or at work. A guy I played college football with, a guy I really look up to. His name's Ben Carter, and he'll get a hoot that he was on the podcast. He's a very successful technology salesperson. He was 2 years older than me in school, and so he left, college. I still had 2 years left, and his career kind of took off early. I was a late bloomer, I guess, is what they would describe me as. But I remember, shooting him a note about something and him not getting back to me for like 3 days, and I thought that was like I thought I thought that was insulting. I have to finally say, "Hey Ben, why don't you ever respond to me?" And he's like, "Dude, I do. I got my whole phone is filled with those texts and my emails filled with those emails, and I have a process and I get to it in a certain order." It was just we were both in totally different phases of communication and staying in touch. Like, how do you stay in touch with all the people that you'd like to, I guess, is the question, Andy.
I think it's hard. I mean, I think part of it is it's again, how do you fit everything in? The friendships, the relationships, they mean the world to you. And you have good days, you have bad days, and sometimes those are the people you want to turn to and like go back and they know you so well. But everyone has life, and random things, and I believe that these things happen for a reason. I was with Adam Thomas, and I were firm buddies for a long time. Still are friends. I do owe him a text if he's watching. Adam, I'm sorry. It's been a while. It's been a minute. But Adam and I joined Shire on the same day, randomly. As much as Ginger love it a bit, would very frequently get me and Adam mixed up. And there was a Christmas card that we actually did one time where we actually kind of held up little placards with our own names on just to make sure everyone knew who we were. But then randomly, like Massachusetts, Boston, Greater Boston area is such a small place. Like I was at Starbucks waiting for a doctor's appointment the other day, and randomly Kelly Bauscher walked out of Starbucks, and it's like we hadn't seen each other in 5 years. And it's wild, and it's like we see each other, and it's like we saw each other 2 days ago. I think that's the power of the connectivity that you have, and it's those I don't think it's so much about necessarily staying on top of each other, like you got to have coffee once a week or anything else, as much as what I'd love to have the time and space to do it. But you kind of bond in different ways at any different time in your life. And those are things that you just invest in. And I think it is about putting that time and investment in, but it's different when you are separated. When you're in the same team or you're in the same business or the same company, it's a lot easier than it is being outside. Then I think it becomes more meaningful, and there are groups of us. I mean, the Lily crew for a while, I mean, were the incredibly randomly, one of the people that, my wife used to work with on the same team in the UK went to go work with her at a company literally across the road from her. They hadn't seen each other for 20 years, and all of a sudden this guy pops out and it's like, "Oh, Simon, you're here." Um, it's wild how this industry has like kept people connected. But I think when those chance connections do come, you got to maximize them and keep them going because I tell you, they give you some brevity at certain points in time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I love the way that you kind of walk us through that, and I also think a lot of it has to do, at least in my example that I shared, with your own experiences, kind of building it right. I had never experienced a world that I didn't have enough time to talk to everyone I wanted to talk to, right? And yeah, just the opposite. I at that point I had always had the time to talk to everyone exactly when I wanted to. Fast forward 5 years from that moment, I had a little bit of a different perspective, a little bit of an understanding, and now fast forward, I won't say how many years, but now the perspective is like, yes, everyone's got that going on and more.
Oh,
Uh,
vital.
and my mom, God rest her soul, one of her big, golden nuggets was always, when you think of someone, just shoot them a note, tell them you thought of them. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't happen all the time, but I try to do that, right? I see something, reminds me of a time with someone, and shoot them a note and say, "Hey, was thinking of you." And whether they respond or not, it kind of helps it, you know?
I don't disagree. I think that the power of the connection is really important, and it's the same as trying to manage your own teams now, wherever you are. Like that ability to kind of reach out and connect with people, whether they work for you directly, indirectly. I think it's incredibly powerful. I think that's the if there's one thing that I wish we could all do better is remember that power of connectivity. To be honest with you, Sean, because everyone, especially when you think about some companies that are completely remote still, some that are back in the office, some that are hybrid. There was a period of time not that long ago where everybody was hyper connected because they were either scared or didn't know, and it was just a way of forcing people together. There's a lot that I never want to go back to, frankly, with the COVID days, but there's a lot that I think we miss was really good. And that connectivity and that checking in, are you okay? How's everybody? How's the family? Just making sure that you had that safety aspect and the nurturing aspect, I think is really still important for us now.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna pick your brain on that in a second, Andy. But thanks for kind of getting us started in the conversation. Like, hearing your full journey is really exciting. One question I wanted to ask: so you're doing IT recruiting, right? Before you make this jump into,
Yeah.
full scope HR. What did you know about HR? Just high level when you were recruiting? Like, did you understand the function? I'm always curious on when people that lead the HR and people function now, the way that you do, in a very, broad and high level remit. Like, when did you first start putting together, like, this actually exists within an organization?
I think probably the first time that I picked up the phone and someone and I got to a hiring manager who said, "Sure, let's get this set up. Let me get my HR, my people focus back on the call as well." And then it was like, "Oh, okay, so there's a whole different ecosystem that works with this." And then helping them figure out how you put an offer together, you realize, "Oh, wow, there's actually another bunch of people here that can like help this." And that's what got me really interested in the world of HR, because then you realize it's so much more than just one thing. Despite what a lot of other people might say at different points, and again, bearing in mind the time this was back in the 90s, like it was a golden age for recruiters. Like, it was printing money because no one else was doing this, and it was how much you could get the back page spread of PC Weekly or whatever the adverts would go out in the UK. Um, but those that took the time to actually talk to the hiring manager, talk to the teams, And I started to figure out behind the scenes who did I need to make sure I had a good relationship with. And it was always HR and the hiring manager. Because if I didn't, there were some of my colleagues at the time were just like literally bombarding the same companies out. And I would actually go down a path of, I'm going to pick up the phone here. Like, let me actually make a phone call and say, look, tell me what you're looking for. You've obviously got a job that you're interested in. Tell me what I can do to like match this up. And then still years later, you still apply that same thing, that same ethos and that same, it's a very simplistic way of thinking about it. But, I think about the way we hire people right now. It's like, okay, great. You're writing the job description. What are you looking for? What does it really want this person to do? And do they need to have 4 PhDs or is one just okay? You start that kind of negotiation, that consultative process, which to me is the heart of everything. It's a conversation. Have a conversation. It's HR doesn't need to be the order taker and like, okay, like, can I take your orders? And like, okay, you want these 5 people? Wonderful. Like, okay, what are you trying to build it for? Like you say, where's the ecosystem? Is it a brand new team? Is it a new skill set? Is it something you can buy? Have you got to build it? Have you got talent internally? When you started having those conversations, that's what got me really into it. And then when I flipped into the HR role for the first time, doing it in a completely different country with something I had no concept of, you realize very quickly you just have to ask a lot of questions. And it was what I started to realize then, the questions that people were coming to me with aren't that vastly different than what people are coming to me with now. If you're a team manager, it's like, I've got an issue with somebody. I want to grow somebody. I want to help them do better, or they're not working within the team. What do I do? What can I give? And it is that coaching mindset that I think is super important for people.
Yeah, I love that you say that, Andy, kind of along the lines of what is old is new again, right? We're still dealing with humans. We're still solving human challenges within organizations. That brings us to kind of the current, right? How are you thinking about the work right now? What's changed in the last, 5, 10, 15 years, right? Like, how do you think about the work right now, relative to what you're tasked with leading?
The work is still the work. It's still around people. Whether we like it or not, that's never going to change. It is about trying to figure out with leadership, what do they want the organization to be? Where are the gaps? How do you address some of these issues? How do you address performance, good or bad? I think sometimes you end up with this whole concept of, oh no, I need your help with performance. And everyone defensively goes, "My bad performance?" Like, well, no, what about good performance? Like, they're doing great. How do I get them to keep going and keep being even better on a sustained performance? That, I think, has just taken a whole different world. I think the other part of it, though, is how people access information. There are groups of people and there are generations in any organization who want to be told by somebody what to do. It's a comfort blanket. It's like, okay, HR will save me. They're going to tell me what I need to do. And then if it goes wrong, I can say, well, HR blame them. It's their fault. They told me to do that. Versus, I would say, a different generation are much more open to, I've got to figure this out myself. And then our role as HR practitioners becomes, again, that coaching, that advisory, organizational behavior, organizational dynamics. But also, I think what's super important is that we have a window to what's happening on the outside. I think the difference between good HR and great HR is when great HR teams can see what's happening on the outside and how that impacts the work they're doing in any company. One company, one sector might be going through a huge reorganizational shift and alignment and then leading to mass layoffs. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean for your company? Well, it could mean like there's a whole set of panic, like, are we next? Or is it a whole set of opportunity like, wow, there's going to be some great opportunities to bring talents in here that we can give homes to that, makes us stand out from the crowd. All of those things are just, there's something different. But I think the one thing that has really shifted is back to where I commented on COVID, changed our role immeasurably. And I think if you look at anybody who's probably been on the show and you've talked to, Sean, in COVID, it was like everyone suddenly turned to HR and go, what do we do? And like we turned around and looked at a blank wall and go, I don't know. But you know what? We'll figure it out. And I think that figuring it out mentality still applies today. The difference I think that we've come to now, kind of post-COVID, is you're managing an organizational dynamic in any country that political shifts, like anything could change any minute. You've got instability the world over that people are frightened about. They are scared, whether they openly say it or not. People are scared about what to say or not say, or what you can say to a person. Like, and again, assumptions you might make. And again, that's where I come back to that whole piece of you have to be taking care of the entire organization, and also being part of what's happening on the out, being very aware of what's happening on the outside that impacts that organization as well. But you can't always forget that there are generations of managers and leaders there that are looking for someone to tell them it's okay to do something. And part of our remit has been like, okay, well, we told you what to do 5 years ago. We got you through COVID. We got through it together by figuring things out. This is how we're going to get through this next phase. And this next phase for me is anything to do with technology, AI. I mean, sure, that's come. It's been coming for a long time. I don't think anyone truly knows how it's going to change anyone's world or mind just yet. It's still too new. But you can't ignore it. I think what's more important right now is that you've got someone shared this phrase with me the other day, and I hadn't heard it before. It's called the sandwich generation. Um, you know, people in the workforce right now are for the first time dealing with kids of a certain age that are looking to grow up, probably getting ready to go to college, or certainly, potentially leaving home. But on the other side, you have the parents who are getting older and they got to be taken care of as well. So now you've got this generation that's stuck, like meat in a sandwich, jelly in a sandwich, that your pressures of your home, pressures, your parents, and then work coming at you, and then trying to maintain some semblance of sanity. It's a lot. And I don't know of anyone that I haven't spoken to, even in my own team, that's not dealing with something of this ilk for what isn't going to be a good chunk of time. And I think organizations that, again, where the role of HR plays, helping us navigate through all of this, whilst also trying to, have a good performance, that's the lost art now. That's what's coming next.
Yeah, it's interesting, the sandwich generation, Andy. Yeah, it's when you hear some of these, individual stories, right? And everyone, a lot of people have, everyone has a story, but you're right. You wonder, geez, the fact that you're even here today, right, is pretty amazing. Let alone how are you gonna be able to focus and, do the best that you can that day. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah. So the first time you heard the sandwich generation, huh?
It is. It is. It's but it fits into this whole conversation as well around, you know, return to office, hybrid, remote. I think I've been asked this question, numerous times in the last couple of years, like, what's the right path? The right path is whatever's right for the company. Each company is different. Each company is entirely different. Some people like to have, the concept of having everyone around them. And if that works for them, that works for them. It's not good, bad. It's just different. And I think that's what's actually, I think, quite interesting about the whole conversation around here is because then you're getting into the topic of what does make me and my company unique versus everybody else out there. I was talking to someone recently and they're almost apologizing for, well, they want this company wants everybody in 5 days a week. And I don't know what to say. And I'm like, it's their decision. That's up to them. Now, people will self-select out of a process because they don't want to work somewhere 5 days a week in the office. That's okay. It's a great method of self-selection, but it shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. Like I think we have an incredibly flexible approach at BVI that we've done on purpose because some countries want it and we allow them and we encourage them. Other countries and other teams just doesn't work. Um, we do what is right for the business in the country and the team at the right time. And that's the decision we took. Does it mean ours is right or wrong? No, it's just our decision. And that's where every other company's got to find their own way. And that's where I think is where it gets interesting because that's where back to this whole sandwich generation. People they want to work for people who get it. They want to feel that they can be understood and they can be, the phrase, be your true self, bring your whole self to work. That's never gone away. It may change the vernacular a little bit, but people want to be able to do the best work and be trusted and treated the same way. That's the way companies are going to set themselves up, I think.
I love that, Andy. Yeah, I mean, I've this is the 38th episode, and everyone talks about this in a different way, but I kind of boiled it down to that our employees, they just want to know that they matter, right? That they matter to the team, to the business, right? and to the extent that number one, that we can let them know that they do matter, right? And then number two, through however we build our processes or however our culture kind of manifests that they feel like them mattering is making an impact to the business is important. And I always what I think is great about just our society is you can build a business um and have certain core values to your point about let's just talk about return to office versus hybrid, and they don't need to fit everyone, right? Like fits fits the most important thing in any relationship, right? Like it's not going to be perfect for everyone, but it's going to be the right fit for some people, right? And so I think that's a very important part of this whole thing. So we got a few minutes left. I'm going to put you back on the spot here because you started talking a little bit about technology and AI. How are you thinking about it, Andy, in the next 1, 3, 5 years? I guess more specifically Gen AI.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about it relative to the function, to your teams? What's your crystal ball telling us?
Oh, anything that makes I would say regular mundane processes easier, I'm all for it. We're looking at this right now with putting a front end tool onto our recruitment process. But honestly, we've been using it in a slightly different way already. One of the things that AI and technology has built in is something that for a global business is incredibly powerful. Um, we run a quarterly pulse survey. We do it much like we've done it for the last 4 or 5 years now, consistently. Same questions every single time, repeated over, because that way then we can see, are we actually getting through to people? Are there any of the things that we do making a big difference and an impact? And because they're run quarterly, we can react to them really fast. And one of the things that we got commented on really consistently was messaging, town hall meetings, video calls are great if you speak English. If you're not a native English speaker, people were finding it hard to follow along and connect. And it was our head of internal comms took a punt on something and tried it. And it's something that's actually, it was a piece of software that's embedded already in Microsoft for free, auto translation. So we would put it on at the time. We do a Teams meeting. It's a video. It's nothing big and fancy. We do an all hands call. And you can be in Japan and the text is coming up real time translated. Our engagement score jumped through the roof. For something as simple as we were able to use technology to help someone feel like they were part of the conversation, that they could do it. We split that out to like team meetings, run them the same way when you're recording. And the AI tool and the translation side of it has got even better. The more often you use it, the smarter it gets. I've seen how we're using it for, I would say, simplifying certain tasks, creating job descriptions. Someone's even started using it as a pilot for AI coaching. They've gone through, coaching methodologies. They know how to do it, but they're asking ChatGPT or Copilot for, hey, I'm meeting with this person. Give me some prompts for some good coaching questions I can have. If they use, that's, I think, a really smart way of using technology. Because if it's making your life easier, if it's making your life, be more prepared, if you can communicate better with people, I think it's going to be a game changer. I think as it gets to, this is where it comes back a little bit full circle to the HR world, though. It's got to be good enough that it feels like you're engaging with a real person. Because that's the thing that if I'm talking out to you, Sean, and I want your advice and your help, kind of want to know you're a real person. They're not a bot of some description, no matter how good the bot may be. And I think it's going to be a next generation that gets there. This generation right now, I think, is a little bit skeptical. They want to see the proof of it. They want to see the use cases working. And that's what people are trying to do. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time for that to get there before you're ready to fully say, okay, can AI really help me solve an issue in my team? That's where the human interaction is going to come still, because that's the trust that's there. It's the same ethos as, you think about the way call centers popped up or customer service popped up generations ago, and you saw them going offshore. It took a while for that to be really kind of understood as a business model that was working. Now you take that and make it electronic and not human. it's going to take a little bit of the skeptic sometimes to come fully round with it, but we're using it where I think it makes sense. And I think where we can use it that will also streamline things like reporting. We have a lot of KPIs that we report out from multiple systems. Being able to pull it in and have AI go spin the report, what's that? Even better. And I think that again, when you then take that time and put it into something better and more value added to the business, you get more return.
Well, last question here, Andy. Again, putting you on the spot. A lot of our followers and audience are folks early on in their HR careers that look up to, you know, you and some of the folks we've had on and hope to be, HR people executives. What is one singular piece of advice you'd give to somebody in their first 1 to 3 years of the work that aspires to grow in the profession?
I'll share the advice my grandfather gave me, which was never say no. Someone gives you an opportunity, say yes. It's not the Branson-esque, which gets quoted a lot of the time, say yes and figure it out later. There's a lot of the truth to that. But I think when people give you opportunities, just embrace them. Use it as a way to show an interest in learning something new, an interest in taking on a different assignment, taking on a work within a project. Some of the people that I know listening and are part of this that have been part of teams that have worked with me or for me for time, that's exactly what they did. They just embraced something different, jumped into it, whether it was for 6 weeks, 6 months, or complete job shift. It really helps. It really does help, and it's what about you get in that moment? Yes, it might feel like weird, like, why would I want to do this? But then I can promise you 10 years, 15 years down the road, you'll remember something about that experience that helps you in that moment there and then. Um, all the moments kind of add up and they matter like later on in life. Um, just never say no. Try anything.
Well, thanks for not never saying no to me, Andy. I've asked you on the show for a little bit, and we've had to work around schedules, but this was really great. I appreciate spending some time with you.
No, thanks, Sean. Thanks for everyone for listening in and thanks for having me.